Who needs reading support? Typically, people think about people that are blind or have visual impairment as needing reading support and using text readers. But we've really realized that there are a lot of other people that can use text readers and get their information auditorily as well. And those could be people with learning disabilities, could be people where English is not their first language, as well as others. There are some people that just prefer to listen rather than read with their eyes. I want to back up just a little bit and talk a little bit about some terms that are in the laws. Accessible instructional materials is something that's in some amendments to copyright law and different things. Accessible instructional materials refers to getting print materials available in some other format for people, and getting it in a timely manner. And those formats might be Braille, so the bumps on lines, large print, digital text, or audio. So any of those are considered those AIM, AIM. But recently, kind of the industry has started talking about AEM, or accessible educational materials. So it's a broader idea of making learning materials accessible. So that may include captions. It may include making, what's that? Manipulatives. So kind of beyond just print materials, AEM goes a little broader, but we are going to talk about AIM. So why do we need these accessible materials? So if you look at this graph, you've got students that are working on a grade level performance. And then you've got students that, if they don't have any support, right around the 4th, 5th grade, their line of intervention and learning really levels off. But if students can have some intervention, some intensive reading instruction, and if they can have some assistive technology and services, they may be able to get back to that grade level performance or stay at that grade level performance. And the idea is that through 3rd grade, you're really learning to read. But after 3rd grade, you're reading to learn. What were you going to say?
And I just always love how this graph illustrates that from the very beginning, intervention is an important thing. We want to teach these kids how to read and be as successful of independent readers as possible. But from the very beginning, we should be implementing assistive technology as well, so they're enjoying reading, so they're accessing that text, so they're realizing, oh, this is why I want to work hard at my reading intervention twice a week, so I can read on my own. So they're not falling behind while they're trying to acquire those skills. Intervention and accommodation, including assistive technology, go hand in hand, and they should start as soon as we recognize that there is a problem for a student.
And I think the key in what you're saying is and. Intervention, intensive reading instruction, and assistive technology or accommodation. That and is so big, and I think there are people that are in the camp of, oh, we can teach anyone to read, and there are people that, oh, well, I can use assistive technology to read, and why can't we use both? I think that is just so important that we think of. I will be the first to celebrate with you when you don't need assistive technology anymore, because you are able to read at grade level without assistive technology. Believe me, I will be the first to celebrate with you.
But we also have to recognize that for many students, a reading difficulty is a lifelong situation that's not going to go anywhere. And even if they do acquire reading fluency, it's still not going to be as cognitively automatic for them as for many of their peers, and that using those assistive technologies is not anything to be ashamed of or self-conscious about, that that is a tool that is there to help these students be successful, and that even people who do not have difficulty with reading utilize for a variety of reasons.
I still use Audible. For a presentation I was doing a few years ago, we were looking at different text readers. And so for that kind of experiment, we were looking at different text readers and comparing them. I got the free Audible books, which is really wonderful human-read books. And it's years later, and I'm still paying that $15 a month and getting my audiobooks because I love being read to, you know?
Yes, Bookshare is another wonderful resource, and I think we'll be touching on that a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So I just want to talk just briefly about the functional definition of accessibility. And this is from UDL Online, or UDL on campus. So the idea of making things accessible, making information accessible, is that we want to provide students the opportunity to acquire the same information, engage in the same interactions, enjoy the same services as students without disabilities with substantially equivalent ease of use.
I think the last part is so important.
With substantially equivalent ease of use. Not equal, we're talking equivalent. So
right.
It may be a different way of accessing that text.
But that the student shouldn't have to do double backflips in order to access what they have a right to.
Individuals with Disabilities Education Act of 2004, access to instructional materials, they talk about textbooks and related core instructional materials being provided to students with print disabilities, and that may be students with blindness or low vision or learning disabilities in specialized formats, and those were those formats of Braille, large print, audio, digital, in a timely manner. And that timely manner in Iowa has been defined as this: at the same time.
There are compliance issues, but that is
in our state statute. At the same time. So if you've got a person that's blind and they come to school, first day of school, are they getting their textbooks at the same time as the other students are getting their textbooks? We've got a student with a reading disability. Are they getting their textbooks in an alternative format at the same time as other students? But I just want you to know that this is the law, that Iowa says at the same time is what timely manner means.
So parents, you know, this is something that you can speak up to schools and say, hey, remember, my child gets this. Don't forget, we expect to have that on the first day of schools. Teachers, you can be advocates in your schools and say, hey, do we know who's going to need AIM, who's going to need those alternatives, educational materials, and do we have those ready for first day of school? Because that's going to start with us pushing for it.
And the people that are responsible for AIM are school districts, local education agencies, AEAs, and members of the IEP team. So you might say, wow, this isn't happening in my school, right? Oh my gosh, what's going on? There is an effort. There is an effort going on in Iowa to get AIM, make AIM available. And it's the Assistive Technology and Specially Designed Instruction Project. There were 6 usability sites in the state right now, and in each site they had to have an administrator, an AEA liaison, a general education teacher, a special education teacher, and a media specialist in these usability sites. And what we've been trying to do is to figure out what's the best way to get the schools to change, to be able to provide accessible materials to people. So what these teams did, these 6 teams, was we provided them with a disability simulation to get them to feel what it was like to have a disability, a reading disability or writing disability. And then they took a course. It was a couple weeks and it was pretty intense. They learned a lot of information in just 2 weeks. And then they were trained on something called UPAR, which I'll talk about in a minute. They gave the UPAR to students. They chose a text reader for their district or their school. The teachers received some training on that, and then the text readers were given out to students. And in the meantime, they all put together an action plan as to how they were going to continue to do this. All along, they kept looking at an action plan. Let me tell you what UPAR is. There's a paper screener, or there's a screener that you can use that's on the computer. And basically, you look at how is a student reading independently. So maybe they're reading at a 3rd grade level independently. And they ask them comprehension questions to see, yes, indeed, they're comprehending at a certain level. And then they have a human read to that person and see how far can they be as far as comprehension. They ask comprehension questions and see where are they comprehending when somebody reads to them. And then they have a text reader, and that text reader reads to them and they say, well, I wonder how they're doing with this. So I'm just going to skip ahead just one slide. And so basically, you might have a student that is in 9th grade that's reading at a 5th grade level, independently reading at a 5th grade level, and they have 75% comprehension at a 5th grade level in 9th grade. If a human reads to them, it's this one, they're reading at a 9th grade level. When someone reads to them, their comprehension is 83%. And if a text reader reads to them, they have 83% at 8th grade, at an 8th grade level. And the comprehension is 58% at a 9th grade level. So this is some of the results. This would be results that would say, maybe we should be looking at a human reader, but also maybe we should be looking at a text reader because maybe they've never used a text reader before. I don't know a whole lot about this, but maybe they've never used a text reader. Maybe they didn't quite have the voice the way they wanted it. But if I want to read independently, how can I read independently if I'm only reading with a human reader? So I remember when my kids were young, and I would come home from work, and I'm refereeing homework in the dining room while I'm making dinner in the kitchen. I didn't have time to read to my kids every night their entire homework that they needed to do. And I can imagine that it's that way with other families as well. So in order for that student to have any independence with reading, we've got to be looking at a text reader. You were going to say something.
I was just going to say, and look at the difference. Even though the human audio was the best, look how close the text reading was, and look at the difference between that and what they were doing on their own. So that tells you right there, hey, we need to get this kid some tools because there's no reason that this should be their ceiling, that this should be the extent to what they can access. Question?
Is there any technology that you know of besides, that's better than this as far as increasing comprehension? Because that's amazing.
This isn't a technology to improve. This is a technology to measure. This is an assessment that.
No, this is one test. This is one administration.
Yeah, this is like if I sat down with you, Brendan, and I said, okay, I want you to read this to me, and now I'm going to ask you some comprehension questions. Okay, now I'm going to read it to you and ask you some comprehension questions, and now you're going to hear it from a text reader, and I'm going to ask you some comprehension questions. Which one, how did he perform on each of those trials, basically?
So it takes about 45 minutes to do this screen. And the point here, you may have results that are just flat, or you may have results that it's worse. But if you've got results like this, you might want to be looking at a text reader. So this is just a screening. And what these usability groups got for being part of the usability group, and we're collecting data, it's kind of a research study, is they got a year of the UPAR, so the state bought them UPAR for their school or their district, and they could use it on whatever students they wanted to use it on. And what they found, this is one of the groups, this is from College Community, was that from the screener, so again, they weren't sure, but the screener said that it might indicate that 39 out of 64 of the students that were on IEPs, 61% of their students that were on IEPs might benefit from read aloud accommodations. They found that their students on 504 plans, 44% of them might benefit from text readers. So, and they found that when they're doing this with students, they really need to make sure that the students understand, why is this important that we do this? This isn't busy work. This is so that we can see if there's some tool that might help you. And then afterwards, after the UPAR was administered, they really said, we need to walk through their results with that student and say, hey, this is what we found, and we might have something that could help you.
I think that's so important to get that buy-in from students. Hey, this is why you should care about this. And then after you're done, hey, this is how we're going to use this and what we're going to do to help you. You know, students start seeing those connections and taking that ownership. We had a question about if schools could get this. The UPAR is a paid program on a subscription basis. There is a free paper version, which is simply called the PAR, that is available also.
And you can download that from donjohnston.com.
Have other questions?
To me, the sad part of this, you've got a 9th grader reading at a 5th grade level. And unfortunately, I spent 20 years in a high school special education room. And my kids, when they came to me as 7th graders, were so far behind, not catch them up, no matter how far, how much they bought into what I was trying to do. I don't know whose fault that was, but they kept telling me they've got to fall 3 years behind their peers in order to get special education services. To me, that's a disservice to the kids. I don't know how we overcome that. Now I've got a grandson falling through the cracks, basically, because now he's falling so many years behind his peers. I do not want to see the same thing happen to him. To me, we've got to fix that gap much earlier.
Yeah, that discrepancy model can be very destructive.
And this is why we need also to do and. Mm-hmm. I would never say, quit trying to teach somebody to read. I would never, ever say that. We need to continue with that intensive reading instruction, absolutely. And you've got to continue that. But in the meantime, if you've got a 9th grader that is reading at 5th grade level, how do they have access to the content in social studies, in science, in math even, in literature? How do and if they could comprehend at a 9th grade level by listening, we would never say that a blind person couldn't use this. There's some anecdotal evidence out there right now. We haven't measured it yet. I mean, that's part of what this study is all about, is we haven't measured it yet, but there's some anecdotal information out there that reading level is increasing when you have access to a text reader or a human reader.
We are measuring it now, Patti. Data's just starting to come out that, yes, exposure to text, seeing that text and hearing it read out loud by use of a text reader does, in fact, help solidify that grapheme-phoneme relationship that's so tricky for so many of our students who are having trouble reading, and it does help them improve. So don't let anyone tell you that this is somehow cheating or preventing them from reading. In fact, it is helping. It is an intervention and an accommodation.
So the type of support that somebody might need would be text readers. But if that, that discrepancy, you know, they're ninth grade and they could understand at ninth grade or eighth grade, if that's not quite there, you know, maybe they can be independent at fifth grade, maybe they can get up to, say, seventh grade with a text reader. They're not up to grade level yet. Those students might need some text summary, or they might need some text leveling. They might need their text not at fifth grade level, but maybe they could have their text at seventh grade level and use a text reader with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because we know that a lot of students who struggle with reading, often because they're not able to access that grade level vocabulary, they're missing that. And so then when they go to approach grade level text, they're missing the vocabulary they need to really have comprehension. And so what Patty's saying is, okay, well, let's bring that level down, the word level down, but let's have them access grade level concepts, grade level material. That's the important thing, and that's what AT can be so powerful with, is helping to bring the student up and bring the material down so they meet and they're getting everything that they need to be successful.
So that's this student, you know, a text reader is going to be enough, but another student where this is moved down, if that's down, so maybe they're at seventh grade, maybe text leveling needs to be part of that. Maybe text summarizing needs to be part of that. So that was the point I wanted to make there. We want to show you some tools, though. And I can't tell you specifically how, I mean, you could advocate for this in your own school district. Hopefully this will continue, and it'll expand through the years. If it's going to get there quick enough for your grandson, I don't know. I can't tell you that, but I do want to tell you that there are some initiatives. The idea here is to tell you there are some initiatives to look at this systematically in some schools. And once we figure out, and we call it a usability group, because we're trying to figure out what's the best way to do this. And they're going to be giving us feedback that, and I think part of the feedback is going to be, we need more than 2 weeks for that first course. And you're going too fast. We can't do this. And you know, so they're going to give us some feedback that says, you know, that was really good. That was too fast. We don't need anything like that. And these are the other people that need to be at the table. So that's part of the usability, and hopefully this will go statewide if it's successful.
Mm-hmm. Patti, would it be possible for practitioners who are interested in this and bringing it to their schools, could they approach and ask, hey, when it's time for that next wave of usability groups, could we be considered? We want in on this pilot, because especially for groups that maybe are less resourced, you know, we're helping them with that component.
You could take my card and I could bring that to the group that's working on this. If you'd like to do that, I'd certainly do that. But we want to show you a few text readers. I don't know what time it is.
It's 2:26.
Okay, all right, we're doing all right then. Okay, but there are some free text readers. Things like Read Naturally is on the computer, so it's web-based. So it's something you could use just on the web. And then Select and Speak or Speak It, they have merged, and I have yet to figure out, is it Select and Speak or is it Speak It? But last I looked, it was Select and Speak / Speak It. So I think they're keeping both of the names for a while. And then paid things that work across platforms are things like Kurzweil 3000 plus Firefly, Read and Write, and Snap and Read Universal. So these are things that in the usability group, they were able to choose a text reader. They got information on these. They were able to choose a text reader And then the state bought them a site license for that for their school. That's when we're going to show. We're going to show it. Yep. Yep. There was one more thing
They got to choose it, and they got a site license bought.
yeah, and then they're just starting to deploy this with students.
So we're putting it in the hands of students.
Into the hands of students now. And because it's a site license, it's not a special ed tool. It's not just for special ed students. And because it's a site license, anyone in the school can use it, not just the special ed students, which I think is really neat. It's part of that. My goal is to infiltrate the media specialists so that they train everyone on these tools, which I think is pretty cool. So, demo.
Demo time. So here we are, and these are all the Chrome versions of these tools. So this is Read and Write for Chrome, which is a lighter weight version of the tool that you would see if you had Read and Write Gold for the desktop, which is available for Mac and PC. But it has many of the most popular features available, and I'm just going to take you through them real quick with a special focus on the reading features. So we can see these just look like your good old-fashioned VCR, play, pause, stop.
Welcome to ICATER.
And it'll keep going if I let it, but I'm not going to because you get the idea. One of the things I love about this one is you saw it highlighted the active sentence and then each word. That's particularly useful for students as we're making that connection between the word on the page and the sound that we hear, which is a really important part of building reading skills. So I love, right. So we call that the grapheme-morpheme relationship. So the, phoneme relationship. So the grapheme's the writing part and the phoneme's the auditory part. So really nice, and that's just play, pause, stop, and it'll keep right on going. This is for what we call live text or accessible text. There's also a screenshot reader. That's for that non-accessible text, those ugly scanned PDFs, words that are in pictures, sometimes like in a caption or something on a picture. That won't be live text if the digital textbook manufacturer did a bad job of making that accessible. That happens sometimes. And there's a lot of other great tools on here. I really love our highlighting features. So great to support students as they're studying while reading. So, maybe I just read this. Ooh, I do not like this mouse. Maybe they're studying, they just read that. Oh, that's something I want to include in my paper. I can highlight this, and I can just highlight things, which is really nice. And then I can collect these highlights later and have a new document. You see, it just took whatever I highlighted, so that's a really nice, be using that in your classes, huh?
I will now.
Now you see that we've got translation, we've got speech to text, a lot of tools to support a lot of different parts of academic work.
Why would translation be important?
So translation kind of goes two ways. If you're an English language learner, obviously helping make that English text accessible to you by translating it into your native language. It can also be really useful for our students who are native English speakers who are learning a foreign language and struggle with reading. So it can go either way. I should probably show real quick the dictionary feature for those of you who didn't see. So I just highlighted a word, and you can see that. So once again, for students that are still getting to that grade level vocabulary, they're still building that, they can go right here. I just highlighted a word, and it's got that word, and all I have to do is click the play button next to it.
Noun. A course where you can study at the highest level of education. He is still at university.
Boom. So really nice for bridging that gap between grade level text and below grade level vocabulary. And then, of course, there's settings if for some reason that voice is not pleasant for your student. It's too fast, it's too slow, it's too high-pitched. You can go in and toggle those things in the settings right here. So another text reading tool I want to show you is Snap and Read. So I'm going to turn that on right here. So Snap and Read launches at a toolbar at the side. We had a toolbar at the top. Now it's on the side. Again, we have an accessible text reader and an inaccessible text reader. I'm going to show you the accessible text reader since that's what we have right here.
Welcome to ICATER, the Irish Law Center for Assistive Technology Education.
Thank you. I need to go in and mess with that voice. I didn't find that pleasant at all. But once again, you saw that it was highlighting the active word. It does not highlight the active sentence, which I think is not as wonderful. Some students prefer that though because it's a little more subtle, particularly students who are worried about, you know, does this make me look different? But if it's just highlighting the word and I've got my headset in, nobody need know. You can see how subtle that toolbar is if someone was just strolling past. So we've got the text reader. We've also got a text leveling feature. So again, to help students access grade level text, you can see I just clicked, and now some things are italicized that weren't before. So like useful thing, valuable supply. Resource was the original word. You can see when I hover here, it has that original word first, resource, and it had replaced it with useful thing or a valuable supply. Or like here is within a large area. Regionally was the original word. Regionally, within a large area. Ah, that helps me understand. I can also click, and right now we have it set to translate to Spanish. This is our translation feature. You can turn that off if that's not something your student needs. And we click again, and here's the original word, regionally, within a large area. Ah, this is Snap and Read Universal. This is the one, I do not have reading difficulties myself, but when I'm cooking dinner and doing laundry and I have way too much reading, as doctoral students tend to have, Snap and Read Universal is what I have read to me while I'm working, when I'm multitasking. So translation, a text leveling feature to help bridge that gap, and then finally we also have a little note-taking feature. Let me grab an outline here. So I can just click here and grab some text. And you can see it pulled that text right into here. It's got a link so I can go right back to where I got it. If I click over here in sources, it's citing those sources for me in whatever way I want. So really nice tool for supporting not just reading, but researching and citing sources. So this makes it, this is a really nice tool that I feel like grows with a student because it's simple to use for an older elementary student all the way up through college when they're needing to cite, they're needing to do that advanced research. Questions on Snap and Read Universal?
How does it print out? Does it print out a separate resource page, or how does it do that? Like with Word, you know what I mean?
It doesn't really print it out, so you can copy this. Let's see. Okay, so here we are. We just kind of download it, and then you can copy it into your document. So presumably you're writing a paper, and so maybe you want these notes out while you're writing your paper. Maybe you have them in front of you while you're talking into Dragon or something. So you can have them out like that. Or you can just download them and have them digitally. For the citations, I would probably say download them and then just copy paste them directly into your paper. So a really, really robust tool there. Kurzweil is another similar tool, I would say more similar to Read and Write in that it's a very robust omnibus type of a tool that supports a lot of different functions, reading, writing, studying, kind of conceptualizing. You mentioned the mind mapping in Read and Write Gold. I think Kurzweil has something like that too. So our sites got to pick from those 3 different ones based on what they felt best matched the needs of their students.
And I think of those tools as they're competitors. They're made by different companies. And, you know, I mean, some people prefer a Chevy or a Ford.
Or a Honda or a...
or an AMC or, you know, whatever car. There's different features in each one of those cars that are going to fit your family better than another one. So these tools have different features that may fit your school or your students better than other tools.
Yeah, and there's a lot of great tools out there. I always tell people, don't be afraid to try things. You know, the best tool is the best tool for you. We can tell you what our favorite things are, things we've been impressed about, and that's all well and good. But at the end of the day, what works for me isn't what works for Patti, isn't what works for you, isn't what works for you, isn't what works for you. I just wanted to show you guys real quick some of the free tools that are available.
Welcome to ICATER, the Iowa Center for Assistive Technology Education and Research at the University of Iowa College of Education is an assistive technology and universal design resource.
Thank you. You get the idea. So this is a free tool. I believe last time I checked that it's actually freemium, so there's kind of a cap on how much reading it'll do before it cuts you off in a 24-hour period. And as you can hear, the voice isn't quite as sophisticated as some of those paid tools. But again, if you're in a pinch, you just want to try a text-to-speech tool, this is a nice one to try. There's a lot of built-in options as well. Pretty much any device you have is going to have built-in text-to-speech that's pretty good. I've been very impressed with the direction that a lot of operating systems developers have been taking to make that more accessible. So that's another direction to try if you're looking for text reading options at low cost.
Now, if we can you just copy some text, hoping that you will go to Rewordify. It's a
Right.
tool that I wanted to make sure you know of. So we've gone through some text readers. You've seen some of these give you definitions, some of them level text. Rewordify, you put this is a free service, free program, or free website. So she put in the text from ICATER, and anything that's highlighted was changed. So this is your text leveling. It's not, right in there, but you've got to copy and paste into here. So this was assistive, and now it's helping. This was region, and it's within a large area. And this was resource. So it did the same thing, a little, you've got to cut and paste, but it's free. So a free version. It's called rewordify.com. It's a free website. Same thing with the other program I want to make sure that you know about, and we're not even going to show it to you, but it's called Text Compactor. It's also, you textcompactor.com, and it will summarize your text for you. So that a couple of free versions. I know we're at the end, so do you have questions? So you've been really great about your interaction, so thank you.
Yes.
So I'm modified. I'm a special ed teacher in autism program, and I work with all levels. I rewrite a lot of the text from grade level materials to make it accessible for my kids. So if I typed in just what it had in the book, this would summarize and reword it, and I wouldn't have to change it myself.
This is mostly rewording it, yes. Saddleback books might be something you want to look at. They make high interest, low text complexity books. Those are particular. The Smithsonian Tween Tribune has it based on Lexile level and grade level for science texts. Gosh, what a terrible problem. We keep thinking of more. It's a terrible problem
Well, thank
now.
you so much for coming.